All right, today we are going to make a sugar skull arrangement with some crazy hair. To begin this arrangement, you're going to take your skull and you're going to decorate it with the paint that was provided. When your skull is all decorated, to begin, you're going to take your floral foam and you're going to drop it down into your water. Now, drop it on top of the water and let it sink on its own. If you try to push it down into the water, you're going to end up with a big air bubble in the center. And that's where the flowers are going to get most of their water from. So you really just need to let it sink on its own. It doesn't take very long. And as soon as it's all the way submerged, it'll be ready to use. You're going to take your floral foam and we are going to cut the floral foam to fit inside of our container. I'm going to use a knife for this, and I'm just slicing down the edge to make it more round until it will fit down inside of my skull. Now it's going to be a little back heavy, so I'm going to take some of this floral foam that I cut out and I'm going to stick it down in the front just to help weigh it down. And then it'll sit up straight. Then I'm going to take some floral or anchor tape and I'm going to put two pieces that are not going to be very long because I don't want this to overlap very far. Just about the width of my thumb onto my skull. Like so. And they're going to run parallel to each other. That's just going to hold your foam into your container. Then we're going to take your 3 pieces of leather leaf fern that look like this. And if you have a piece of leather leaf fern that has some dots on the back, the dots on the back are actually spores, which means the plant was very healthy. They're not bugs, they're not going to hurt you. If anything, it might get a little dust on you, but that's about it. So to begin, we're going to cut these, and I'm going to use some shears today to cut them here. And then I'm going to cut right above where it Ys, so that I end up with these little sets of wings that look like a little Y. That's what you're wanting. So I'm going to cut right above several times until I end up with a piece that is about this big, which is about the width of my hand. And I'm going to do that to all 3 pieces of leather leaf. There we go. Then I'm going to start inserting these pieces of greenery into my foam. Now I want the dark side of the greenery to face up, or as facing up as you can. Sometimes on these little Ys, it gets a little more difficult, but that is essentially up on the plant, and that's how it's going to grow towards this the sun. And we want this to look more natural. So I started out and I put 4 pieces in, 1 on each side to make a cross. And then I'm going to just start placing it randomly around until I've kind of filled up most of the space. There's not necessarily a right or wrong way to do this. you just want to cover your foam. If you have some really big pieces like this, if I put this in my arrangement, it's going to stick out really far. So I don't usually recommend this, but you can cut the wings off of this and make them a little bit shorter, and they will fit much better into your arrangement. I don't normally recommend it because these stems also start to get really short and really small, and they don't take up water as well, so your arrangement won't last as long. But this arrangement is not meant to last real long anyways, so it'll be fine on this one. There we go, like that. Now we're going to start with our flowers. So this is your one stem of daisy palms. There's several different types of chrysanthemums that were in there, so some of them might have a little daisy center, some of them don't have the daisy center, but they're all related. So I'm going to cut these off, and I'm going to keep the stems as long as I can, because you can always cut them shorter, but you can't cut them longer. Some of these stems will have more flowers on it than others. You're just going to have to make do with what you have and make it work. Alright, the next thing you need to know before we start inserting stems, some daisies have a face. And so if I were to turn this one, see how it turns down and then you can't see the face of it, or its pretty face? So we're going to turn it up so you can see it. And then I'm going to cut it about the width of my hand long. And I'm going to place them starting out in that X that I started with. So one straight out the front, one at the back, one on each side, one right in the center, coming straight out of the top. Usually for this one you want your straightest, prettiest flower. And then you're going to fill in your extra space. Now you don't want any flowers touching because you have lots of space in this arrangement to fill. So here's an example. Look, none of my flowers are touching each other. Then you have a little bit of filler flower. Now our filler flower today is called wax flower. Unfortunately, our wax flower today is a little sparse. When they sell wax flower, they sell it by weight instead of by stem count. And sometimes when you get it, it just has a whole bunch of stems and not much flowers, but there's not really a whole lot we can do about that. So we're gonna make do with what we do have. So I'm gonna cut out the pieces that have flowers on them, even if it's just one tiny little flower, because I can still make use of that. And when you cut this, I love to smell it because it smells like lemon pledge. So we're going to take these pieces and I'm going to stick them into my arrangement, and they're going to go in between where my daisy mums are. So I'm going to have to cut them down just a little bit shorter because they're a little bit long at the moment. And then take off some of these leaves down here. And if you have a piece of greenery that sticks up really far past the flowers, you're welcome to trim that off as well. And that will make your flowers much more prominent. Like so. So I'm just going to drop these in here, kind of evenly spaced. Alright, and then when you finish, go and look and see if you have any places that foam is showing, and you're going to take any other tiny little pieces of greenery that you have, and you're going to drop them down into those spots because you don't want any greenery to show because you want to cover your mechanics. There we go, a little sugar skull arrangement with crazy hair. Now, I did hot glue the little hole that was down here at its chin, but you may want to stick it on a plate just in case it leaks because there's no guarantee that these won't. And we don't want to ruin Grandma's china cabinet. So put a plate underneath it, and I hope you enjoy.